services must be available in real time from both online and mobile platforms, and they must be seamlessly integrated so that a citizen can avail the services in the easiest way possible without having the need to navigate across multiple websites and multiple forms or formats for obtaining a service. All entitlements would be available on the cloud platform so that it is easily portable. And we also want to ensure that all the financial transactions are made electronic and cashless. To empower citizens digitally, what is important is to ensure universal digital literacy. And we also want to ensure that the digital resources are made universally accessible. We also want to ensure that the resources are made available in Indian languages. And this will be a key growth area to ensure that more and more people, they use digital services. These are the 9 pillars of Digital India. So as you can see, the pillars, they focus on broadband highways, that is on digital infrastructure, universal access to phones, public internet access program to ensure that everyone has access to a common service center, and e-governance, pillar number 4 and pillar 5 as well, which focus on ensuring that all departments, they make their services electronic. Pillar 7 is focused on electronic manufacturing, which I will be talking about in the next few slides. And this focuses on the target of ensuring that we achieve net zero imports by 2020. So idea is that the country should be able to achieve net zero imports in the next 5 years. The projection is that in the next 5 years, the demand for electronic goods would cross $400 billion. And if we don't intervene now, then we would end up importing over $300 billion of them in the country, surpassing all the other major categories of imports, as was mentioned by Mr. Ramachandran earlier. This is a very ambitious goal, which all of you are aware, and it requires interventions in a number of areas, in taxation, incentives. We need to ensure that the companies achieve economies of scale and they eliminate cost disadvantages. And we must focus on some big ticket areas, for example, fabless design, which talked about earlier, set-top box, etc. We are also focusing on incubators, clusters. I will talk about that in the next slide. And we also want to ensure that government procurement acts as an enabler for ensuring domestic manufacturing. So these are some of the key policy initiatives that the Department of Electronics and IT and Government of India has taken in the last couple of years to ensure that domestic manufacturing becomes competitive internationally. So first is that the tariff structure has been rationalized on a number of items, mobile handsets, PCs, TVs, on ITA products on which the basic customs duty is 0. Even that also has been taken up to ensure that the companies, they don't face inverted duty structure. Then LEDs, medical electronics, solar photovoltaic cells, etc. MSIPs, it was announced in July 2012, and it has already provided a lot of incentive to the manufacturing units to make manufacturing competitive within the country. It provides incentives on reimbursement basis for investments in capital expenditure, 20% for investments in special economic zones, and 25% in non-SEZs. It also provides for reimbursement of CVD excise for capital equipment for the non-SEZ units. And very recently, just in July of this year, Cabinet has approved the extension of this scheme for another 5 years, and also approved amendment in order to simplify the procedures and enhance the scope of the entire scheme. So this is a major boost to the efforts towards ensuring that domestic manufacturing becomes competitive internationally, and companies, they see value in going for domestic manufacturing. As of now, 77 proposals with total investment of over 1 lakh crore have been approved across the entire country, and the entire scheme is very investor friendly for domestic manufacturing. So I urge all of you to take advantage of this scheme and ensure that your manufacturing becomes competitive. In the focus areas on big ticket items, setting up of semiconductor wafer fabs is a key initiative. LOI has been issued to 2 consortia for setting up the wafer fab units in India. There is a policy for promotion of fabless design industry, which I talked about in the keynote just before. In this regard, a cabinet note is under consideration for approval of the policy. Under the Electronic Manufacturing Cluster Scheme, assistance for greenfield EMCs is provided up to 50% of the project cost, subject to a ceiling of rupees 50 crores for every 100 acres of land. And for larger areas, pro rata ceiling applies. For brownfield EMCs, 75% of the cost of infrastructure is available as assistance, subject to a ceiling of rupees 50 crores. Then final approval has been granted to 2 greenfield EMCs and in principle approval to 16 and 3 common centers in brownfield clusters. This is the monitoring committee structure on Digital India headed by the Prime Minister. As you can see, this is the highest committee which looks after the policy initiatives and provides the overall monitoring and supervision for the entire scheme. So attention is given at the highest level in the land for the entire sector of Digital India, IT enablement, and electronic manufacturing. And states are also involved in this entire mechanism as members of the committee. This is the composition. As you can see, this is headed by the Prime Minister of the country with a number of other ministers, which gives directions and guidance to the entire Digital India program in the entire country. So this is all that I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajendra. I think you set the tone for the rest of the session along with Ms. Kumar Srinivasan. So I now request the Mr. Amar Babu from MATE to make his presentation. There was a suggestion that maybe we should have a discussion instead of a presentation by each of the panelists, but we still have about 75 minutes to go. That's not taking into consideration the delayed start. So we still have about an hour and a half to go. So kindly take 7 to 10 minutes. Maybe I'll remind you if you think you are not able to keep track of time. I'll remind you when we are about 8 minutes into the speech.
Thank you, Mr. Ramchandra. Members of the dais and friends from the industry, and also the officials from the government of Tamil Nadu. First of all, a very good afternoon. So I'm going to digress from my presentation a little bit, so pardon me that I might not be talking on my slides, because I think as the discussion has progressed, I just kind of thought that it might be more appropriate to talk about some of the comments that have been made earlier. So first of all, I think Mr. Rajendra Kumar had a very good presentation. And as you can see, I think the goal has been very clearly set. Whether you look at the Digital India goal of the Government of India, the vision document of the Government of Tamil Nadu, I think the goal for electronic manufacturing in India is very clearly set. It says net zero imports by 2020. So I think it's a very clear goal. There's no explanation really needed for it. The only point that I might add to it, as we see it from a MATE perspective, or a Manufacturers Association, is that when we talk about net zero imports, it might also have to have exports in it. While it talks about import, we need to keep in mind that you can achieve net zero imports by also enabling exports. So it may not be that you manufacture everything that we consume electronically, but we have a good balance of both the import and export, and that gives us the net zero imports. And I think there is a definite opportunity, as we see events taking place across the world just in the last few weeks, that there is a definite opportunity to make that happen in India. Electronic manufacturing is not new in India. Many of us who are part of the industry, my close friend Alok is sitting here, representative of Dell. I represent Lenovo. My friends from HP are also in the audience here. We've been manufacturing in India for a long time. However, I think one of the things that has been plaguing the industry is that the question always is it truly manufacturing, or is it more of assembly and not that much of local value add, which is limiting the real manufacturing that happens in the country. And that has been definitely a cause for concern. And I think that I can say that on behalf of Mate and also as Lenovo as one of the larger investors in India, I think that it's the OEMs and the brands and the manufacturers would be keen to add more and more value locally to the extent that it is possible. And that is where I think the whole framework of what is it needed to actually push this harder comes into play. And I think the press slide that was presented by Mr. Rajendra Kumar just summarized, I think, more or less what is needed. I just want to take a little different, maybe give an industry view to it. And by the way, let me not come here with a list of, I don't want to make this a grouse list and say that there are so many things that's not working. That's not my intent at all. However, at the same time, I must call out that things have moved dramatically in the last year or so. And I think there is the overarching framework of a digital India. There is the incentives and policies of a Make in India. I think the direction is right. However, we still have a long way to go. And I think the simple measure is how fast can we get to that net zero imports goal. And right now, we are quite far away from that. In my mind, the first thing is policy. And there are two aspects to policy. One is, of course, an enabling policy framework. And I think we saw some of the incentives being provided, the changes in taxation, duty structure that has been made, and you've been seeing a lot of announcements on smartphone manufacturing. I mean, we as Lenovo and Motorola announced our manufacturing out of Sri Perumbudur just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So clearly, I think the enabling policy framework is there. One request from the industry to add to it is that it's got to be a stable policy framework. What cannot happen is that things change as the regime changes or as some of the objectives change. And I think that really what hurts our credibility in the international environment. And I think as a country, we need to ensure that there's a stable and enabling policy environment. I just want to add the piece around stability as part of the requirement around policy. The second is clearly the ecosystem. And I think this is where the biggest play needs to be. One of the reasons why we are not able to increase the value add locally is just because there's not enough variety or the component ecosystem is not developed to the extent that it needs to be. So, and because Kumud is on stage, I'm taking the liberty of calling my ex-employer out here. If I need to buy an Intel CPU, I necessarily have to import, right? And it's not just the CPU, whether you take memory, hard disks, even basic components, it's not easy to buy them in the country because it's not manufactured. And I think to me, that's the key part of enabling electronic manufacturing, have to look at building that ecosystem. Design, I think, is great because with design, to Kumud's presentation, I think it was great. I think bringing in design will bring in some amount of some of this component manufacturing into the country. But I think beyond that, we need to provide the right incentive framework. The investments in fabs is a great first step. But we need to bring some anchor investors. We need to bring some large players so that they are able to then provide the components into the value chain where the OEMs and the ODMs can then take on. I mean, the EMS partners exist. You're going to hear Josh speak about the Foxconn investments later. We have partners here. I think what is needed really is a complete industry government effort to go and attract some of the large component players into India and provide the right incentives, provide the right enablement to make them happen. We need to remember that Tamil Nadu as a state, as an investment destination, is not just competing with the other states of India. More than that, is actually competing with the other countries of the world. And every country is out there wooing investors with various incentives, enabling policies to make it happen. So we need to go compete aggressively as a destination and go and show them why it makes sense. One of the biggest drivers of that would be local demand. Because when the local market is large, there is a natural interest for every brand to be close to its customer. That's one of the reasons why we at Lenovo decided that we're going to manufacture smartphones in India, both the Lenovo and Motorola branded smartphones. So I think the local demand, increasing that local demand would be a big step, and riding on that local demand, I think would be a great incentive for people to set up the infrastructure here. The third is obviously the whole gamut of things under ease of operations, ease of doing business, just running the operations. You know, there's many things under this. and I don't want to get into a laundry list here, but things like infrastructure, just getting products in and out of the country, the way the ports work, logistics of moving, enabling exports, for example, targeting certain countries to provide incentives for specific items around the hardware, I think will go a long way in making things easier. Some of these actually add a cost. So when we look at, as Lenovo, when we look at our manufacturing plants in India, both on the PC side and the phone side, I can tell you that we are the cheapest, amongst the cheapest in the world in terms of the cost of manufacturing. And today cheaper than our China factories. The reason why that we lose that economic advantage is because of the cost that the lack of infrastructure, the interests and other things add, a lack of a unified market in terms of GST, all of that add at least 25 to 30% of an overhead cost that actually ends up driving the cost that much more. So every effort that goes in to bring that out, I think will make a very, very big difference. And within this, when I look at it overall and I look at Tamil Nadu, I mean, clearly there are lots of advantages that Tamil Nadu has as a destination. And actually Kumud had called out some of this stuff. And I'm not actually just doing this because I'm preaching to the gallery or playing to the gallery here. But we are doing it as a serious investor in the state. As I said, we have started manufacturing phones in Sri Perumbudur a few weeks ago, manufacturing almost 10,000 units a day. And we've been partnering with the government of Tamil Nadu on many of their initiatives, including the student laptop distribution scheme. And I can tell you that our experience has been fantastic. It's I think, one of the most proactive government bureaucracies that we have seen across the country. I think they are very supportive. There's definitely talent that is available. Kumar talked about the kind of engineering ecosystem, college ecosystem that exists. I think in terms of the infrastructure, the industrial parks, EHTPs, etc., the ability to move products in and out of the country. Chennai is our primary import destination for all the imports that we do, whether it's components or it's for finished goods. I think Tamil Nadu has all the basic requirements to take a big leap in this space. And the fact that many of us are already there, many of the existing brands already manufacture in and around, many of the EMS providers are already around.
2 minutes left.
Yes, sir. Actually make it very, very apt that Tamil Nadu has the right, I would say, environment to leverage this opportunity. What is obviously needed is a very joint effort, because there are central policies, there is state level policies, and how can then work together with the industry. MATE, of course, has been taking a lot of leadership efforts in here, and we've been working with the government of Tamil Nadu. And the thing is, how can we go target certain investors to build to the ecosystem that already exists? And I think for manufacturers, brands like Lenovo, adding the ecosystem component players in the country and enabling a little more easier way of doing business with the ports, with the logistics that already exists, I think will be setting the tone right. I am a perennial optimist. I know that 2020 goal of net zero imports looks very, very aggressive, almost impossible, but I think there is a path to it. And I think some of the changes that are happening around the world is giving us an opportunity. It is for us to take that up and make that happen. So I want to take this last minute to thank the government of Tamil Nadu for inviting me. I think it's truly a very, very impressive event. I, as MATE president, now past president, I have had the opportunity and privilege to address many events, and I can say that the scale and the magnitude and the breadth of this event is truly spectacular, and I think that itself, in a way, is testament to the opportunity that lies ahead for Tamil Nadu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. I think that was a very nice, succinct 10-minute presentation. You stuck to the limit, so I should thank you, doubly thank you. So we'll now have Dr. Veerappan. He will introduce the topic himself. And the guillotine stays, Mr. Dr. Veerappan.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. No, after a power-packed and inauguration session and everything. After lunch, coming and sitting in a classroom type of thing, listening to all 7 people, 10 minutes each, I know if I am in that side, what would have happened. So thank you very much for your patience. I think it's full hall. I prepared a lot of slides. I decided not to give the slides here, so I kept the slides with me. So it's 10 minutes. I thought I'll cover something which is very, very important rather than talking about all this. This is all important, but still, one thing I'm going to clearly talk is what is missing, why manufacturing is not growing, what is missing, why it's not happening in the country. I think that's the only thing which is thing. So one, I will talk about innovation. See, any manufacturing has to happen, you have to have innovation out of the country. So in this small example, I'll just ask, where is India Intel? Where is India Dell? Where is India Sony? Where is India Microsoft? I can tell many things that where is Samsung, LG, I can tell all these things. Well, where is India's international product? Do we have one? But all these things are all innovated by Indians. Many of them are innovated by Indians, but not out of India. Why? The simple reason is the system, what the culture and system what we have currently. See, when we studied engineering, there was no computer science, there was no IT, it was electrical, civil, mechanical, and so on. So you see a lot of engineers have become mechanical engineers, they went into SAIL, they went into HAL, NAL. That was the only opportunity those days. Now what's happening? You go and study engineering, anything you do, computer science, or you do chemical engineering, you do anything you do, you ask what you want to be, everybody is saying, I want to become a software engineer. That's almost true in 70% of the game. I'm not against IT. One request is, Mr. Ramchandran, one request from all of us today is, you should change your designation from IT secretary to IT and electronics secretary. Government of India has done this. IT department as IT and electronics department, not IT department. I'm not against IT, I'm an IT person. I used to work for Wipro earlier. So here, in the college, in the system, what we currently follow, we all go and study, they come out. What do? First is the campus interviews. Campus interviews goes on, big companies. We are all, big companies are here. They come and take the cream. The cream people, TCS, not the Intels, the TCSs, Wipros, and all of them take the top notch, 90%, 80% people. They go into some application software development, Oracle, financials, and so on. They go into that. Then the next 70 to 60, what they do, these smaller companies like us go and take them. That's done. Then what happens to the people who are 60 less arrears, last semester pass out, and the people, what they have, they don't get a job. What they do? They do masters. Who has to do masters? No, I'm telling this topic, who has to do masters? I'm not telling all that. I'm telling examples. So what the system allows is, the people who are average and not getting a job are getting into masters. Why they are going to masters? To get a job again. After masters, to get a job. After masters, if they are not getting a job, what they do? They do PhD. Exactly. Who has to do PhD? The people who are brilliant who have to do PhD. Here, the system is saying, then one more thing is also happening. Not getting a job, not getting, passed out of masters, not getting a job, become lecturers, teachers. Who has to teach? The brilliant people have to teach those days, right? I'm not telling that today teachers are not brilliant, they're all brilliant. I'm just telling system. So average people are becoming more and more teachers and everything. So innovation is almost, the people who are brilliant, who are supposed to innovate, are all getting off. Then what happens, most of the people after engineering, then go for higher studies to the US. Higher studies in the US they go and do, they become Vinodams. They become all of them. So the innovation support in the US or any other country is much better. The simple example is, big US agency has done a survey, 2 decades, 24 years, 25 top innovations of the world. Sir, I'm taking away from the topic, but this is quite, so 24 innovations in the world, 25 innovations in the world, last 24 years they have taken a survey. Which country has innovated this? The IP lives in which country? As simple as that, 25 top innovations. Innovation is not going to moon and all. It's not going to help us. Somebody going to moon rocket and all is fine for the common public. The innovations which we cannot live without it today. you take your emails, take your internet, take your all the e-commerce, everything you take, cell phones, all the type of top 25 innovations have been taken. Which country has innovated the most? The IP lives in which country? IP lies in which country? Any guesses? Obviously, it's US, no doubt. Out of the 25 top innovations in the last 2 decades, 21 came out of US. It is from the US. 21 came out of the US. Some came out of Japan. Anything came out of India? Out of 25, we have 1 billion people. We can tell so many things, intellectuals here and so on. But not even one innovation out of our country. All Indians have done it. Most of the Indians have done it, but not out of India. That's what my point is. So the system is not supporting. So I request the government and the educational institution, everything, to support, to make sure that we promote research. We promote innovation. A lot of schemes are coming in the Government of India now, in the state governments, but one is, unless until we come out with our own product, our own innovation out of our country, that's one, which can help us in manufacturing. Then second is the advice to the parents here, or I can see some young people who are 30, 40, or the parents, when your children go for the college, don't tell them, no, you have to study this, no, you got a job in Wipro, you go and join the job. So don't push them, allow them to do masters if they're brilliant. And there are some companies which are taking them and giving salary and asking them to do innovation. So please make sure that your children are more into something which is different than application software. So then there's one possibility of young entrepreneurs coming to this field. The second is the clear mindset. One, I tell innovation, the mindset in manufacturing here. See, when we go and tell what we have grown in the country in the last 20 years, 91 onwards is IT and software. IT and software, it's everybody wants to be. There are so many success stories. So many companies are into this. Even a small people, like 10, 20, 30 people, entrepreneurs are there in this software industry, and it's grown very well. Thanks to the wonderful Vision 9 from 91, it started doing now. If I take this, why? Less investment. No machinery, no nothing. If I have to put a factory, the capital investment is very high. I have to invest in capital very high. So in a services company, IT or services, any services company you take, less investment, short time for return, correct? More profit. So straight away, any businessman, anybody who's a businessman or running a business or who want to be in business, it's a cakewalk. They know very clearly that it's only people. I hire good people, I develop software, then it's exported through net and I make money. I think it's simple, and not simple, it's tough, but still process-wise it is simple and people make more money. When you go into manufacturing, very clearly it tells high capital, means high investment, low return, long waiting. That's hardware. Any hardware you take, any manufacturing you take, you need to wait for some time for return. You need to put more money, you have machinery and so on. See, if you take Delta, you take Foxconn, you take all these companies, they invest huge money on equipments. Maybe, but the equipment and the ROI, if you call
alarm
ROI.
is for you. 2 more minutes.
2 more. I'll definitely finish it. 2 more minutes. So ROI, if you take the ROI, it is long term. So anything, we all have a mindset that anything in the hardware, so who has to start manufacturing in the country, who are already in manufacturing, who are already having money. See, if I don't have money, it's difficult to start a manufacturing company to invest. So why big companies are not thinking about manufacturing? I don't know. So basically the companies who are already in manufacturing are the best to manufacture in the country, to take manufacturing in the country. That's one. So we have to all change the mindset that hardware, if it is efficiently made, we can make money. I think government has to somehow make sure that, that mindset is getting changed among the new people, entrepreneurs who can start a new factory, or the people who are having a factory. Manufacturing industry should have a different mindset that it has to make. So coming to the next thing, as everybody said, that if you are not doing, see, we have, why electronics, again, third is not growing is, the country has signed a 1998 ITA, ITA agreement, or, under WTO in 1998 we signed, it's called Singapore Agreement. 217 products we signed as a country. That means that 217 products can be imported into the country without a duty. So what happens? when I import all this, there are huge, see, China, Taiwan, all Koreans are doing big time manufacturing. So if I import the product, it will be cheaper than manufacturing in the country. Why should I manufacture? If I have to manufacture in the country, but import is cheaper, why I should manufacture? I think the government is working again on you were talking about the revised duty structure and so on, which is one, will make us more better. Here about Tamil Nadu, we are here in Tamil Nadu for the last 5 years. We have centered in Coimbatore. We are doing a PCB